So now that we have a setter, we can prevent a rectangle object from going into a bad state. But what if we don't call this setter? So let's see what happens if we print the width of this rectangle. Take a look. We get this garbage value because the width variable is not initialized. So here we have two options. Let's go to the header file for our rectangle class. One option is to assign these variables an initial value, like 0, whatever makes sense. And by the way, look, in the previous lesson where I generated the getter and the setter for the height field, CLion added another public section here. So now we have two public sections, and this is messy. So let's consolidate this code. I'm going to grab these two function declarations, move them up. Good. Now let's remove this other public section. Also, we don't need these comments anymore. So by listing all these public members first, we can look at the rectangle class and quickly tell what features or what buttons this class provides. Okay? So we can assign these member variables an initial value. Great. That's one solution. But we have another way here. We can create a constructor for initializing a rectangle object. A constructor is a special function inside a class that is used for initializing objects. So we go to the public section and declare a constructor function. Now, constructors don't have a return type, not even void, and their name is exactly the same name as the class. So we type that here. Then we add the parameters. So width and height. Good. Now let's generate the definition for this constructor. Okay. Now in this constructor, we can validate these parameters and set the attributes, but that is repetitive. We already implemented that logic earlier. So here we can reuse our setters. So we call set width and set height. As simple as that. Now for clarity, I want to print a message here, constructing a rectangle. I want to show you that this function gets called when we create an instance of a rectangle class. So back to our main file. Look, we have a compilation error saying no matching constructor for initialization of rectangle. Because now that we have a constructor, we have to supply two values to create a rectangle object. Now there are two ways we can do this. We can type parentheses and supply our values. So now we're calling the constructor function. And you can see the parameters here, width and height. So let's pass 10 and 20. That's one way. The other way is to use curly braces instead of parentheses. So braces 10 and 20. In modern C++, we use curly braces more often, but you see a lot of code bases where objects are initialized using parentheses. For the most part, these two approaches have the same result. There are special situations where they differ, but for now, you don't have to worry about them. So going forward, I'm going to use curly braces for initializing objects. So here we have a rectangle object. Now let's run the program. Here's our message constructing a rectangle, and here's the width of our rectangle. Beautiful. Now, what if we pass a negative value here? Look, again, our program terminated with an uncaught exception. So we didn't allow a rectangle object to go into an invalid state. This is the benefit of defining setters.